Hey, welcome back. This is day number 23 of Habits for Happiness. And my habit today is sharing, or what I want to share is the journal prompt that I use in the evening. And I've done a lot of, or I guess a couple different forms of journaling, both in the morning and in the evening. And I used to do just a regular, like journaling out whatever came to mind. But I didn't really feel like that in the evening was what I wanted to be doing, or I didn't feel like it was fulfilling. So I kind of came up with my own little format, which combined one practice that I used to do, which was using three things or writing down three things that I was grateful for, with a couple other prompts. So I'm actually going to show you what it looks like. I wrote something out here. And here's my dog Willow. We just got done going on a long walk. But so here's what it looks like. So I call it 3G PBL. And that stands for three things that I'm grateful for, one thing that I'm proud of myself for doing or accomplishing or not doing or whatever for the day, one thing I felt I could have done better, and one thing that I learned. And the first thing that I would recommend about journaling, number one, I would definitely say to do it. I think it's a great way to check in and just kind of keep a log that you can look back on, and also, like, we like to, my girlfriend and I will call it bookending the day, like having habits in the morning and in the evening that we do every single day. And this is one of my habits right before bed. Like, I sit down in bed or sit down on the bed, and before I start to read, I will do this journaling. But the first thing I'd say, here's the journal that I use. It's like a nice kind of has a nice cover. It's orange. You can't really see it in the lighting. But the first thing I'd say is, if you don't already journal and you want to start, go and spend the money to get a nice journal that you feel good about having. Because when you invest in something like that, you're far more likely to follow through with the practice. When you have some skin in the game, I wouldn't just grab random scraps of paper or anything like that. Like, get a nice journal that you feel good about, get a nice pen, whatever. Go out and begin the practice by investing in yourself and investing in what you're going to practice. But then, so this is not exactly what I do every night. I don't actually write it out this way. I would just write out the sentence. I am grateful for a nice walk with Willow. I am grateful for, whatever, fill it in. But I don't actually list it exactly like this. But the practice of gratitude is really important. It can be really easy to go throughout our day or even throughout our lives without reflecting on all the good that we have. And it's kind of human nature for so many of us to get caught up in what we, noticing what is not good in our lives, noticing what's not perfect, noticing what we feel like should be improved, and we don't take enough time to really appreciate what's there. So the gratitude part is super important. And then reflecting on something that we're proud of ourselves for is also really important. It's so easy to miss that. It's so easy not to give ourselves credit for things. We work ourselves to death half the time, and we're, putting in hours doing whatever we're doing, work and with family and with our personal endeavors, and it can be really easy just to criticize and feel like we should be doing better and feeling like we're not doing enough. So I think it's really important to not just note one thing per day, but also just get in the habit, or like put it in our minds, that it's okay to be proud of ourselves. It's okay to recognize like when we do something well. And then we follow it up just to stay well-rounded with something we feel like we could have done better. So sometimes for me, it might be like I'll give examples for all these. I gave one for grateful. Something I would be proud of myself for might be something simple, like just remembering to think about what I'm doing when I take my shoes off or take my sandals off, and like remembering to put them on the shelf, just being mindful of like not kicking them in a random place and being present with that. Or proud of myself for closing the shower curtain at night, like after I get out of the shower. Just small things. It doesn't have to be big. Sometimes it might be for being really present at work and like working hard. It might be something more like that, but even small things are fine. And same thing with something I could have been better about. Like that might be not getting, like I could have been better about not getting annoyed or angry when like my dog started barking at another dog or barking at a cat or something like that. Like I could have been better about just correcting her and not getting, annoyed and emotional about it. But just small stuff. And then something that you learned. And I found that the one really interesting thing about this practice is that it requires you to be more mindful throughout the rest of the day, because I'll sit down now at night sometimes and I'll have to sit there and think of something to fill in these with. Like I'll have to reflect back on my day. And what ends up happening is like sometimes I really have to sit and think about it. And when I do that, usually the next day I'm a lot more in tune, and I'm realizing throughout the day, I catch myself going, oh, that was something that I could have done better. And it sticks in my mind. I notice it. Or I recognize something like, you know what? I'm glad that I just did that. Like I'm proud of myself for doing that, even though I didn't want to. Or if I learned something, I'm thinking, you know what, this is a good thing. And it helps you really to be more in tune and aware of what you're doing throughout the day. But sometimes it does, or sometimes I do sit there and I have to think about like what's something I learned today. Like last night, what I wrote was that the spectrum of the sun's light was 250 to 780 nanometers. So it can be something random. It can be something applicable to whatever you're passionate about. It could be something that you just, learned about a family member, whatever. Just something to reflect back. But I found that this probably takes like 2 to maybe 5 minutes if I'm really like reflecting or I'm thinking about things. But honestly, probably more like 2 minutes a night. But it's such a great way to cap off the day. It's a great reflection. If I look back here, like I have a bunch of different, pages of this. And, it's something nice that I can go back on later and just remember. I mean, even now I will, and just remember like where I was at and, remind myself of the things that I've learned, remind myself of the things that I have been working on, because I will, and if you try this, you will notice that like the things that I want to get better about, or the things that I feel I could have been better about, they tend to reoccur. I'll notice them happening more and more throughout the days, or I'll become more aware of them, but they're things that I repeat a lot of times, and it's helped me to get in tune with them enough to be able to go back and recognize that it's a pattern for me. It's not just always random stuff. Like it might be things that I do habitually that, aren't optimal or aren't me at my best, and they're things that I want to improve on. So that's it. To summarize, I highly suggest as a habit for happiness to journal. This in particular would be a before bed journal, the 3G PBL, 3 things you're grateful for, 1 thing you're proud of yourself for, 1 thing you feel like you could have done better, and 1 thing that you learned that day. So give that a try, and I appreciate you watching.